Strawberry Fields Forever, Take 7, remix from 4-track, Take 6.
G'day there, my name is Maitreya Edwards from the title of the podcast, 8 Questions with Maitreya Edwards, and I hope you're doing well because we have a really cool episode today. Daniel Menzel, one of my absolute heroes, but I'll introduce him in 1 second because I need to thank the continued support from everybody, the lovely comments and messages and the shares that help as many people as possible get their eyes in front of my product, which is crazy to me because this is daunting and it can be scary, but being supported by all you lovely folks reinforces to me that this is something that I love doing and something that I want to do. So I thank you all for your amazing support. I also want to update the Angus Stone situation because my great mate Sean Conley has agreed, along with Noah Stoffels and myself, to get a dope lemon head tattoo should we be able to get Angus Stone on the podcast. So I'm going to keep trying, and if you could give him a message for me, I will shout you out in front of him because it would be like a dream come true to have a chat to Angus. And also you'd see us with some zesty ink. So please give him a message, and I thank you in advance. Daniel Menzel is one of my heroes. I say that because his career is unlike many in the AFL. Unfortunately, Daniel had been injury plagued while he was at Geelong, undergoing 4 knee reconstructions and being unable to play AFL for 4 years, which, as an athlete, we talk later, the psychology of that can wear everyone down because it's such a hard situation. Daniel's story is amazing because despite this, he came back, and he came back hard, and he came back well, and he finished his career at Sydney. I shouldn't say finished because I'm not sure what his plans are now, but he's currently not with Sydney anymore. He's having his first year outside of the AFL system in a long time, and we talk a lot about that. We also talk about the psychology of sport and the life in the AFL system and rehab. His brand, MTMF, which is a motto that he used to get back: mental toughness, mental fortitude. In fact, I'm wearing an MTMF beanie as I record this intro and actually during our chat. We also talk about his lovely supporting mother, Kathy, and the footy world right now. So thank you for listening, and shine on, you crazy diamonds. Great, we are on and live. Can you hear me, Daniel?
Yeah, I've got you perfect.
Awesome, mate. Welcome to 8 Questions with Maitreya Edwards.
Thank you very much, mate. No, it's good to be on here.
Yeah, awesome. I like that I've got you today because on your Instagram I saw just very recently you've actually started a podcast of your own.
Yeah, it's been an idea that's been around for a couple of months now, and a media business, Cotton Media, that I bought into, have talked about doing it. And I mean, with everything that's happening with coronavirus and the time we've had on our hands, it's probably fast-tracked it a little bit. And yeah, we released our first one today, and just something new, something interesting, and hopefully, we can go quite well.
Definitely, mate. And it's Men's World of Sport for anyone who hasn't watched it. I'll put a little description down below because I haven't got into it yet, but I'm very excited because you've got an NFL punter, if I'm correct, on your first episode.
Yes, we do. We got Aaron Sipos, who used to play at the Saints, and he's just recently been signed by the Detroit Lions. So, it covers all sports around the world, and we're going to get guests from different sports in different countries, and he's obviously in America at the moment. And it's a really interesting chat with him just to sort of find out how he got to where he did and how what the pathway's like and where he'll go from here.
And your podcast it's talking sports. Mainly that's the general theme. That's what listeners can expect.
Yeah, it is. It's the first segment's basically a wrap of sport around the world and where things are at and what's going on, and just to sort of, I guess, fill the casual sports listener in about some things they might not know. And then we have a special guest on, and we followed up the final segment's the top 10 version of different things. The first one we've gone with is the top 10 memorable moments of the decade, and basically it's in there to get people thinking about some things that happened over the past decade, but also have a little bit of a debate with mates and bring back some really good memories.
I like, particularly like you said before, there's never really been a better time to get something like this off the ground, because people are at home, people are bored, people need something to listen to, and people need something. Everyone wants to be interviewed. I've always thought. Like I haven't done too many of these podcasts myself, but even just by reaching out and asking great people like yourself, well-known people like yourself, particularly in this time and stage in the world, have time and will agree and make something great.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more with that.
Awesome, mate. Now let's get into your 8 questions, Daniel Menzel. Question 1 is, what age during childhood did you feel happiest?
Age in childhood. Probably, I was actually talking with a mate about this just yesterday, not necessarily that question, but about moments you remember. And weirdly enough, one that came up was Big Brother's coming back on, and I used to watch Friday Night Live on Friday nights when it used to be on, and we talked about playing development squad at Central Districts on a Friday night after school, and then going home watching that, and then what we do for the weekend. And so that's probably some of my happiest memories, is probably around about that time, which is you're 13, 14, 15 years of age, where you sort of don't have a care in the world. All you're really doing is playing footy on weekends and hanging out with mates at school during the week. And there's some of my absolute happiest memories. And I remember I used to, on weekends, my youngest brother Troy, we used to play footy all weekend. We used to go and watch local footy on Saturday, have a kick ourselves, and then play on Sunday. So I guess at that age you don't have a worry in the world, and that brings back some real highlights for me. And
you think about the unintentional development that would have given you and Troy as a player. Particularly, you're one of the few in a category that can say they have a brother also in the AFL league, which I find very interesting. And I bet, going back to childhood and just that repetition practice, I heard your mum, Kathy, talk in your documentary, which we'll get to a bit later, about the sheer competitiveness between the two of you.
Yes, that's definitely always been there and still is there to today. But it's something that it's a healthy competitiveness, and I guess it probably fast tracks the both of us when we're growing up as well, because you are doing everything against each other and you're upskilling yourselves. And it's something I was lucky that I had another brother with very similar interests, and you're able to verse each other in the backyard and have those memories, those lifelong memories. So it's one that we are very competitive, but it also, I think, it's a very healthy competitiveness.
And healthy competitiveness is the best way to put it, I reckon. I say football, particularly in the age that we're living in, an age of convenience. Football is a tool that teaches life skill, especially to young people, especially to people in low socioeconomic communities. Football is such a great teaching outlet for people who don't always have everything. It teaches you skills and disciplines of life, and I think you're a great example of how football can open doors for people. And you're a perfect example because you made it to the fucking league. But for everyone else, for all us bench warmers that aren't Daniel Menzel, I think it adds great discipline and life skills, if not the amazing career that you've gotten to have.
Yeah, well, it does. I think it's a really good way to put it, and particularly life skills is a really good way to put it for anyone, no matter what level you play at. You play in games and you learn to win, you learn to lose, you learn to have resilience and up around different things that happen. So it's there are a lot of similarities in life, and obviously in football and the way things work, and that translates into workplaces down the track as well. So it's one that there's certainly a lot that you take out of it, and being in that team environment as well, it makes you become a lot more unselfish and have to realise and work on what helps other people. So it's something that, yeah, you're right. You don't know it at the time, but it definitely is giving you an advantage for later down in life.
Yeah, really, really well put, mate. My second question to you is, what has been your greatest challenge in life?
My greatest challenge in life is probably my 4 ACLs. I think that the physical and the mental challenges that came with that were greater than what I'd probably anticipated, but also have prolonged them much longer than what I would have anticipated at the time as well. And that's one where it constantly challenges you, and if you're not sort of in the right mind space or have the right people around you, then it absolutely can break you at times. And that's something that there's so much learning to come out of that. So I guess for me, going through, you do your first ACL and you sort of think, well, obviously I'm going to come back from this and that will be it. And at the time, 9 months worth of the rehab is pretty arduous and pretty difficult. And I guess then when you have a second and then a third, and in my case 4, I guess the continual setback is the thing that builds on you, and it's really difficult to stay positive through that and see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think I've touched on this with mates in the past that have done ACLs, and I sort of asked them how do they find it and how actually do they go throughout the week. And most of them say, oh, look, I struggle a little bit during the week when the boys go to training where I'm watching them on the track. But most of the time I struggle on the weekend on a Saturday when I'm watching them play and I'm not out there. I'm not doing what I want to do. And I think what I touched on, that although I was very fortunate to be in the AFL and to have the best people around me, and that's ultimately what got me back from 4 ACLs, it also is a burden as well, because that is your life and that is your job. So I've mentioned to them that I struggle with it every single day, every minute of every day, because that was my full-time job. There was no escape. And the other thing with that is you're in the limelight, so people know who you are. And unfortunately, out of, I guess, just genuine care, you'll have random people come up to you all the time and ask how your knee's going. So they're only trying to do the right thing, but what it's actually in turn doing is it's bringing it up and making it front of mind for, I guess, for myself at the time. And that's where you really struggle to escape and put it to the side. So that probably was the greatest challenge. It's just mentally to be challenged every single day and every single time you did it, and have to respond to that, and have such a, I guess, public life around it, and the scrutiny around it as well. It's amazing what emotions you go through. I guess some really highs, but then some really bad lows as well. And you do learn and develop a lot from it, but that's something that would have absolutely for a 4-year period been one of the most challenging things I went through. And then I guess the other thing that I still am challenged to this day is that the impacts of doing 4 ACLs, and not as much mentally, but probably more physically, what that has had on my body, and the patience I've had to have with that, and the challenges I've had with that, which then spill over to be mental. And unfortunately, you battle with that, and at times wonder why you're not moving the way you want to, or why you're sore all the time. And that prolonged effect is probably something I didn't at the time expect to happen, but it's one that I've just had to learn to deal with and manage, and just be really patient with.
By prolonged effect, because I was obviously reading up, and sorry to hear about early last year you had a groin injury. Do you think something like a continuous injury like an ACL that you unfortunately had to have, does that alter and I suppose change the kind of the amount you rely on different parts of your body? You'll favour one leg a bit more than the other, or so and so. Could something like your struggles with your ACLs, unfortunately, do you reckon that contributes to, could contribute to things like your groin injury?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all coincides together. I think with me, it's something for probably 2 or 3 years post coming back from my 4 ACLs, I had groin soreness and other soreness in my body, and it wasn't 100% sure as to why that was there. I thought it might be to do with my knees, but probably didn't realise the actual impact that it had. And in compensating for, I guess, just deficiencies through my knees and through such a long time out, it did take a massive effect on my body. And in the end, I had a really bad, I guess, movement in my groin, which meant that every time I changed direction, every time I moved, I would have inflammation in my groin, and meant that for a couple of years I genuinely couldn't train majority of the time, and if I did, I didn't have that power and I wasn't able to push off because I'd have that instant pain. So it's one that the frustration there was that you try and train as much as your teammates, and you try and get back those 4 years that you've missed and show people what you can do, but then every single session you have to do that little bit less. And the mental battle I had with myself was I've always been a very driven individual, that I was always like, I'm going to do more when I can, I'm going to put the work in, and eventually it'll pay off. But for me, it meant that I actually wasn't able to train as much as what my teammates were, and that's something that over time you decondition and it affects your game. And I really mentally struggled with that, because I then had to work out where the boundary was and how much I could push myself. And not just that, unfortunately, you have a lot of people around, you have players, you have coaches, they want you to do more and more and get back in and sort of train like a normal player. And the physios sort of need to have that chat that unfortunately that can't happen, and that's something that creates a bit of a divide as well at times. And there's a lot of challenges that you probably don't expect, and that's what just adds to it, I guess. And so it's one that, to be honest, I'm as happy as I've ever been with my body. I think that going through the 4 ACLs, I sort of pass on that anyone who does an ACL or has a really long-term injury that's going to affect them, it usually takes a year or so to get over that. And in my case, doing 4, I didn't think it'd take me 4 years to get over it, but it probably has in terms of the rest of my body. And I haven't injured my knees in more than 4 years now, and it does feel like I'm in my best condition and best shape I've ever been in, and don't actually have any pain in my body when I actually train nowadays, and I can train back-to-back sessions, which I've never really been able to do. So it's one that I knew I'd have to be patient. I probably didn't think it would take 4 or 5 years, but it does feel like that's what it's sort of taken.
Really well put, mate. And I liked what you said a little while ago. You talked about the part of struggling mentally with a setback and an obvious injury is people meaning well, trying to give you support, but really just bringing it up. And I draw back to episode 2 of my podcast. I interview my mentor, James Taylor, who unfortunately has had cancer battles for the last few years of his life, and he stresses over and over that he doesn't want to be known as the cancer guy. He doesn't want to be known as this is my one part of my identity, where when you're, especially I can only imagine for you, when you're in the spotlight and people mean well, but it often I feel like people would come across as you're the guy who got injured rather than yourself. Do you feel a bit like that?
Yeah, absolutely. That stigma's there, and it's there in good ways. It's also there in negative ways as well. And you sort of just, the quicker you get your head around that, I think the easier it becomes. Unfortunately, people don't do it in a negative way. They don't mean it that way at all. But that's sort of just how it's portrayed. And again, I touched on it. It's good and bad. You get a lot of nice messages, and in turn, I've been able to help a lot of people out who go through difficulties, whether it be mental health or whether it be injuries in sport, and that's something that I feel like I'm a little bit privileged that I'm able to pass on things that have helped me, and that's something that's the good of it. Then I guess the bad of it is that you get pigeonholed, unfortunately, that people believe you'll never be the athlete you want to be, and unfortunately you're always going to be injured, and that I've felt that a little bit the last few years with AFL clubs, and that's what people do, and unfortunately that's the nature of it, and you've sort of just got to accept that. But it's one that I think the more you battle with it yourself and mentally you get frustrated with why people do that, I think that's when you're going to really struggle. And so I sort of just go, okay, people are going to make up their own mind and have their own opinions. That's completely fine. I've just got to control what I can and hopefully change the narrative there.
Yeah, no, very well put, Daniel. On the topic of mental health, I want to ask you my next question, which was, Daniel Menzel, when was the last time you cried?
When was the last time?
It's a funny one, isn't it? Yeah.
Every now and again in a movie, it'll get me every now and again, and I'll
Yeah.
think, what is going on here? This
Movie cry. Yeah, good.
I
suck at it. I'm so bad. I can't cry during movies at all. I'm a stone. And it's only when it catches up on me. I don't really expect it. Like last time I cried was after my Jimmy interview. It was this big emotional thing. We had this big hug at the end. It was great. And then out of nowhere, all the fatigue and everything hits me. I'm like, oh, here we go. This is it.
Yeah, wow. It built up on you. Yeah, I think, I don't know, movies get me when I guess I can empathise with different situations, and that's probably when that will get me in movies. I think it's a hard one in terms of when I actually would have. I do, looking back on different things, gets me emotional, and maybe not necessarily cry, but when I'm pretty lucky that Fox Footy put together a really good documentary telling my story, and so that when moments like that come up, I guess you brought back to that moment, and that probably gets me a little bit emotional at times, and more maybe a happy emotion rather than a sad emotion, which is nice. So that's something that probably does come to mind. And certainly that was one of the most emotional weeks of my life, and that's probably one that stands out to me. So, yeah, I'm probably fortunate that I'm lucky in terms of I haven't had, in terms of my close family, I haven't had any close deaths in the family, especially recently anyway. So I've been very fortunate with that. So I guess mine's probably, it is footy related, and it's probably more a happy cry than it actually would be a sad one.
And I like how you keep that in perspective, Daniel, in terms of not everything in my life is the worst and be all end all. You mentioned, you know, a lot of people at the moment are having to deal with death and having to face death, and we're very fortunate in that, myself included, don't know anyone recently that's had to that's passed away or anything like that. So when you keep it in perspective like that, you realize how lucky you are. And I also think it's really good to see people of influence like yourself talk just candidly and you know, vulnerably in a healthy setting. You know, what we're doing here is we're having a healthy conversation. It's not you know, on Footy Classified trying to pin your Caroline Wilson type thing. It's just talking openly. And I think, you know, for someone who has influence like yourself, it's a really good thing. So I thank you for sharing.
No, I appreciate that. It's you're spot on. I think it's perspective is the big one, and unfortunately, what often happens is you need to go through some bad times and some down times to really realise what's important and how bad things really are. I mean, I talk with mates all the time, and even lucky to talk to people who are going through different things. And the thing that I learn out of it and try and pass on is that everyone has bad things happen in their life. Everyone has good things happen in their life. And unfortunately, a lot of people think that the things happening in their life at the moment are the worst things possible and the worst things ever. And it's not until you hear about some other stories and understand, okay, my life's actually not that bad. I'm pretty lucky, and I've got to actually make sure that I realise how lucky I am with some of the things that I have in my life. And that's something that I really try and do myself, and I even write down at times things that I've achieved, things that other people around me have achieved, and what I've got. And when you sit there and you look at all the things you've actually got, it does make you realise that, okay, I actually live a pretty fortunate life. And unfortunately, like I said, when you get into down times and downward spirals, it's hard to see that. And so I've absolutely been through plenty in my life, but there's a lot of good things I've had, and I'm very fortunate in comparison to a lot of other people.
And I look to the work of the Resilience Project, which I'll try to get someone on the podcast in the future, but they talk about the power of practicing gratitude every day. Yeah. And once you, I know they've talked at a few footy clubs. I don't know if you've talked with the Resilience Project at all, if you're familiar, but after, I think it's about 20 days, your brain trains itself. It trains itself to practice gratitude, and you once you realize the things that you do have, everything else becomes smaller, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I have had them speak it when I was at Geelong, and it was very interesting. And they are very good at what they do, and it's just everyone's different. It's finding out what works for you, and for me, it's when I go for runs, when I train on my own, that makes me happy, and that makes me realize that this is what I want to do. This is what I really love doing, and it just brings about those happy thoughts, and it takes away any of that negative stigma that you might have or things that come to mind. So it's finding what you enjoy doing and really focusing on that, because when you do that, then yeah, absolutely, it comes to the forefront of your mind what things are important to you, and what things shouldn't be as big a deal as well.
Exactly right, mate. Exactly right. My next question to you is, what do you consider to be your greatest accomplishment?
I think my greatest accomplishment, I don't have a family, I don't have kids at the moment, and so this could easily change down the track. I know that in speaking to a lot of teammates in the past, they've said you wait till that happens and
yeah, watch the space.
But I think for mine, I probably have a couple in there. Coming back from my 4 ACLs, my comeback game, 1,450 days out of the AFL.
That was fucking insane. That was one of my favourite games of football ever, seeing you back up and running, and oh man.
I think that definitely will always be a highlight of mine and in my top couple, because AFL and footy does mean a lot to me. It's an absolute passion of mine, and I do love footy, even though at times it doesn't feel like it. But it's one that for every single day of those 1,450 days, I did dream about and I did think about that game. And amazing people you see comeback stories, and you see any stories, and you hear people even in movies and whatnot say, I could never have dreamt of the day that when it actually come, what happened. And I sort of think that with my story, I wouldn't say that. I actually had thought about that happening, and I thought about it every single day for 1,450 days. So at least one of those days would have had to have been that scenario playing out in my head. So that's one that I did every single day, thought and wondered, and when will the day come that I actually will play. And I remember when that day did arrive, that's what popped into my head. I thought every single day for 1,450 days, I've thought about this day and when it'll actually be here, and it's actually here. And so it was so hard to take everything in, but I did try and take everything in that day, because every bit of hard work that not just me, but everyone around you puts in to get you there, it's all worth it. And so that's one that is absolutely going to be there forever, because I always thought if it doesn't pan out, and I never was going to quit or throw in the towel, but if it doesn't work out the way I want, and I don't make it back, unfortunately, because my body doesn't let me or something else, I'll always have that question in my mind when I watch footy: could I have maybe been back out there? And think maybe if I tried something different, would I have actually run around? And so
those are what ifs.
Yes, exactly right. The fact that I did do that, regardless of, I guess, what I achieve in the future, and if I achieve my ultimate goals, I'll always have that, that I did make it back and I did achieve that. So that's one of my greatest achievements. I think I'll feel something that I'm really proud of is my business I set up, MTMF, Mental Toughness, Mental Fortitude. That's something that was a byproduct of my comeback, and people watching my documentary and following my story. And I guess I've got a lot of questions around that and how I could help others. And one of my real achievements on there is that I set up an ACL plan for anyone who goes through an ACL, and basically it'll coach you through it. And I think there's a lot of people out there who go through ACLs, unfortunately, and other mental health setbacks and other injuries, and they just have no idea how to do the rehab, because they don't, unfortunately, have access to the resources. And so that's sort of where the idea come about, to set that up online. And basically, if you do your ACL, you can jump on and it'll coach you mentally and physically through a ACL rehab. And I guess the achievement there is I was sort of hoping that if I put it online free, I might get maybe 500 people look at it or sign up in the first couple of years. And in 3 or 4 years, I've had more than 4,000 people sign up for that. So that's one that again, I look at that and go, regardless of if I achieve what I want to achieve personally, it's pretty fortunate that I've been able to have that impact on others, and that's something that I guess is one that, yeah, you put things in perspective. That's a real achievement in itself.
Okay, I'm glad you've talked about that, because in true fanboy fashion, I'm actually wearing my MTMF beanie as we speak, because I've been a big fan of your brand for a long time. I think particularly I got quite sick with glandular fever when I was in year 11, so I couldn't play sport anymore and didn't really know what to do, didn't really know how to talk about mental health. But coming across your brand and your documentary, which I'll link below this video, because it is an amazing watch. And like you said, the ACL plan, good mate of mine, Jake Robinson, did his ACL, unfortunately, started year 12, and I sent him a link to your plan, and I think he got a lot out of it. So I truly thank you for the stuff you do off the field as well, Daniel, because at least personally, it's affected me in good ways.
I do. I really appreciate that and the feedback. You're always never sure how things will be taken and how much they could help people and whatnot. So the feedback is, I do really appreciate that.
Yeah, awesome, mate. My next question to you is, what change would you like to see in the next year, both within yourself and the world around you?
What change would I like to see? I guess I sort of feel like through playing, getting picked up in the AFL maybe 10 or just over 10 years ago now, and being in the system for 10 years, just with everything, the changing landscape, media, social media, everything about that, it did change a hell of a lot in the 10 years I was in the game. And unfortunately, I feel like with media and social media in particular, I do feel like it's changed from really reporting good stories and things that happen to, unfortunately, really focusing on negative things that happen and really pumping up those stories. And I guess it's one that you sort of, it's the way that it's gone a little bit, and it's a little bit of the stigma around it. But I still believe that people love hearing good stories and love reading that, and it still sells. I think the media nowadays has gone very much down the path that a negative story sells way more than a positive story. And so I think with mental health, the way it's gone over the previous couple of years, people are starting to understand now that, okay, maybe your comments that you might think are very little, people do take on board. And it's not necessarily that we're more sensitive nowadays. I think it's because of the sheer magnitude of information out there and social media out there that people might have something negative happen in their life, and they might get whacked by 10 blokes, and they'll go, you know, I can cop that, but it might be the 11th person or the 12th person that sort of breaks the straw, I guess, and that's what sort of gets through to someone. And so I guess for me, I love reading about feel-good stories, and I'm obviously fortunate that I've been in one of them myself, and I love watching documentaries that are really happy stories and where you see someone achieve something, and they're the ones that I wish the world was more privy to. And so that's something that, if I could have a change, I guess it would be that I guess there's more positivity, I guess, in the media, and that's really driven home, because I feel like the media does influence a lot of people's opinions and perspectives. And one that springs to mind is the Adam Good story. And I was in Geelong when a lot of that happened, and then I went to Sydney last year when the documentary got released, and I couldn't believe the difference in media reporting in Sydney to Melbourne, and the difference in being in one club to the other, how much of an understanding you got, and how much I guess you could be almost manipulated by the media and see something completely differently. And so that sort of opened my eyes that, okay, people have these opinions because they listen to high up people and they listen to what they say. And so things are reported in a much more of a positive matter and perspective, then that will shape people's opinions a lot more too. So I think just positivity when it comes to everything in sport and in AFL and in the world. And there's obviously going to be a lot of negative too, but it might just shape people's opinions a little bit more and allow people to understand where people are coming from.
Definitely. And I think particularly it's easier to utilize negative negative or hit pieces at times, or just negative articles, fear-mongering articles, because they sell. They're proven they're proven statistically rather to sell. And I've referenced this in like my last 2 episodes. I'll keep it really short because people are probably sick of me talking about it. But Daniel Menzel, I want you to have a guess at how many advertisements you will see a day. So the average person, how many ads do you reckon you see a day?
Maybe 50.
So I've got a stat. I'll link it down below again because I've done it like 3 in a row. It's really becoming my broken record cliche at this point, so I should shut the fuck up about it eventually. But we see between 4,000 and 10,000 ads per day.
Yeah, there you go. So, that's overloaded in every sense of the word. But well, that shows why obviously things sell and whatnot, because subconsciously you're not aware of it, but it is forced down your throat, I guess. So it is. I do absolutely understand that negative press sells 100%. I just think that positive stories do as well. And
completely, definitely.
They fun, and I think I'm a big fan of sports from around the world, which we touched on before, and I love how overseas, particularly in America, I think about NBA and NFL and these sort of sports, and they pump up the LeBron James, they pump up your Tom Brady's, they pump up the superstars, and I feel like although they do bring them down at times, it's very much how good is this guy, and over here we struggle to do that, and we feel like if we put someone on a pedestal, we need to bring him down to earth pretty quickly, and so
a bit of a tall poppy syndrome
is very much over here, and so that's something that I do love the way that America goes about it in that way, that they do really build up their best athletes.
And hopefully, particularly on your podcast, you can utilize that and find a way to pump up those Australian sportsmen just by, like you said, you got a great depth of knowledge when it comes to the media in America. So hopefully you can bring a bit of that over here, Daniel. I'm excited to hear myself. My next question for you is, who is your hero?
Who's my hero? I think I'll probably have a couple, to be honest. My obvious hero is my mum. She raised 6 boys and was a single mother for a fair bit of that time as well. And so it's incredibly impressive, just those stats alone. But
and on the documentary, I only saw a couple glimpses of it, but she seems like I've even written my notes. Seems lovely. Like she seems like the sweetest lady in the world. The way she talks about you and about your brothers is just, the joy in her eyes is so cool. And I could even say that from a documentary standpoint. So I could only imagine the great work she does.
That's great. She'd love to hear that. That's she's just extremely supportive, and she's very strong-willed and independent as well, which I think is what she's instilled in me and my other brothers, and has certainly helped me throughout my life. And I think the other thing that stands out to me is that throughout my injuries and setbacks and all my tough times, she was always there for me, but not just there for me. She was always very supportive, to the stage where she said, I want you to overcome this. I know you're going to overcome this. And that's pretty massive from, I guess, your biggest influence in your life. They could easily come at it from another standpoint and go, I don't want you to get hurt again, or I don't want you to get upset. And so from a caring standpoint, go, no, I think you should sort of throw it away, or maybe look elsewhere. And from someone who has a big influence on you, if they said that, that might make you question yourself a little bit. But for her to always go, I know you've got this, that backing is massive, and that's something that I'll sort of never forget. And so that's why she would be an obvious one. And I think another one who, my best mate in Adelaide, who lived with me when I was going through my ACL, he moved over to Geelong from Adelaide with me, basically live with me and to help me through. And I remember when he moved over, he said, I can't wait to watch you play AFL. And he lived with me for 3 years and then moved back home for work. And I remember talking to him, and he said, I didn't get to see you play one game AFL when I was over here. And I said to him in time after that you're actually here in the most important time for me, although I didn't play a game AFL. It was the toughest time, and it made such a difference in my life. And he's someone who I just always know that will be there if whenever anything bad happens or things don't pan out, he's always around. And a good example is I got delisted from Sydney 6-7 months ago, and rang him and told him straight away. He was one of the first people I told, and he said, "Oh, I'll be around after work with a slab," and we come around that. I guess you just know that you can count on him, and that's the biggest thing.
Definitely.
So they're two that clearly stand out to me.
I can't speak from an AFL perspective, but I'm sure pretty much all blows can be eased with the slab with your best mate.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Daniel Menzel, what would be the first song you would pick in the soundtrack to your life?
Yeah, I just had a little thing about this before. There's a song by a band called Faul, Faul, and it's called Happy Endings. I think that's one that springs to mind and sums it up pretty well. That I guess particularly for me, I try and see positive in every situation, and at times that thought is absolutely challenged by myself, and you just think I don't see the positive in this one happening, and I think that's my mindset that has got me through this far, and it's absolutely one that I still have at the moment, and try and pass on to others that if you put the work in, eventually it'll pay off. And so for me, I've spoke about being patient throughout, and I've had to be patient with my body for 9 years now, and so I do believe that in the long run it will pay off, and I will get the rewards that I seek. And so Happy Endings is a good one for me. I think that at the end of it might be the start of life. That's what the song might be, but knowing that at the end of it, although it's going to be a roller coaster, it's going to work out.
Yeah, Ripper, mate. I haven't heard of it, but I'll definitely check it out because I'm a bit of a music head myself. So, Happy Endings by Fall. Did you say?
Fall, yeah, it's a pretty chill song. It's it's probably another one that's not a bad way to present it for me too, because it's something that I have a hectic enough life as it is, with a lot of things that are happening, and like I said, it's a bit of a roller coaster. It's not just straight down the middle. So it's one that chilled music's probably a good thing for me, just to mellow me out and take me away from everything that's intense in my life. So I don't mind the type of genre as well.
Yeah, no, good answer. My final question to you, Daniel Menzel, is how do you want to be remembered?
I guess I want to be remembered as someone who achieved all that they could achieve. I think that's something that sits well with me at the moment, even though I still have so much that I want to focus on and achieve in my life. That I have probably pushed myself as hard as I could and got to where I want to be, and I don't have those doubts or questions in my mind. Maybe could I have done a little bit more to get where I wanted to go? And so I guess that's one thing that I want people to remember me for, but also to be able to help others and pass on knowledge that's helped me along the way. And I something that I never did it for when I was coming back. I never did it to be able to help others when they go down a similar pathway or a similar journey in the future, but it became a byproduct of it, and I feel extremely fortunate about that. And when people pass on to me that I get messages all the time from people who might have overcome an ACL, they might have overcome something else, and they just message me and say, "Hey, mate, I just want to let you know I made my comeback today and got through successfully, and so just thanks for everything." And a lot of people, I sort of look at the message and have to reread what we've spoke about, and sort of feel like I haven't actually had any impact at all. But to be able to be in that position where you can have a small impact on someone and help them in some way, that's something that I feel extremely privileged for, and no doubt don't take for granted, because I know when I was going through that, the little things that can make a difference, and for me that was massive, and I'll always remember those people who made that difference for me, and all those things. And so to be able to do that in my position in turn now is something that I feel extremely privileged for, and it's something that I'm really proud to be remembered for as well.
And it's a great way to end, and it's a big reason why I did want to get you on the podcast, because you have personally helped my life in marriage. More if anything, just the support from the brand, and the support of you making a comeback and setting an example. Leading by example is a great way I would describe you, Daniel Menzel. And with that, I thank you for answering my 8 questions.
No, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be on here, and like I said, I do enjoy these forums and just chatting about that sort of stuff and what works for different people. And And yeah, wish you all the best with everything going forward and your podcast as well. It's something that we're obviously both just taking on, and just something that's really enjoyable and gives us something to do at the moment too. So no, thanks very much for having me on.
Cheers, brother. Catch up.
No worries. See ya.
Because of all the stuff going on outside the house, you know, the pressure, the job, all those things that can weigh you down. You know, sometimes, just sometimes, you bring that home with you. And I understand, but you know, I want us to just stop for a minute and think about how much we have together.